Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Decker, and welcome to the Palm Harvest City Leader Podcast. Joining me in the studio today is my friend Ian Stevenson. Ian, glad you're here.
Great to be here, Mike. Thanks for the opportunity.
The Lord, it seems like, has led you into this new venture that is really, from my vantage point, is gaining traction. And I really want to kind of expose and shine the light on it, because I know it goes way beyond its reaching already just because of your own network, the boundaries of Costa Mesa. So we're going to talk a little bit about that this morning. Unpack for me, how did you know, if you can think back to your transition from leaving the crossing, which you had been at for how many years?
27 years.
27 years, significant years. How did you know it was time for you to move from A to B, to move out of the crossing, which had to be a fairly comfortable, place and joyful?
Well, yeah, just to be clear, I loved what I did at the crossing. I was in charge of our local and global outreach. So I was leading teams all over the world. I was doing a lot here locally. But for me, my circumstances were showing me very clearly everywhere I went, every part of the world, every city I was involved in, even what I was doing locally, I just kept seeing this lack of coordination, this lack of unity, this lack of working together around challenges. So for example, in Africa, just hundreds of NGOs, all doing water. Hundreds of churches all involved in that process with them. And just really no coordination and no joint efforts that could move the dial much more significantly if they worked together instead of everyone doing it on their own. That's one example, but I saw that everywhere. And meanwhile, I'd gone to some different learning community things, and God was tapping me on the shoulder, just saying, I want you to help facilitate more collaboration. I want you to be working on this, and you need to start right where you are. Mm-hmm. And you remember that day, I'm sure, just as I do, where finally the time was right. It was March 17th, 2011. We got those leaders together, and we just shared what was on our heart. But so for me, to your question, how does that transition happen? Well, it's your life experiences, and it's paying attention to where there's a holy discontent, where there's something that needs to adjust, that needs to change. There's the listening to the tap on your shoulder, that small, still voice. And then I think it's having the courage when you know that it's God asking you to take that step, to take it, even though it's scary, even though you don't know where your next paycheck is going to come from, even though you've never done this before and you know that there's a lot you don't know, even though that you may not have the complete team and everything you think you're going to need in order to do it. Yeah. You have to have some courage, and you have to have some confidence that this is indeed what God's asking you to step into.
So transitioning out of the crossing, what are you currently leading right now?
Okay, so currently I head up an organization, a nonprofit here in Costa Mesa that we call Trellis, which is it's just basically a simple structure in the city that facilitates collaboration around some of our city's greatest challenges. Okay. We kind of lead with the faith church community, which is involved a lot in the collaborative efforts that we're doing, but we also include businesses, city leaders, other agencies and nonprofits. It's trying to identify the biggest challenges and figure out how we work better together in them. Obviously, there's a spiritual challenge in any city, right? There's a spiritual climate. There's the hope of a city, the belief in a city. There's this kind of spiritual aspect of the city, and we believe the thing that impacts that the most is prayer. If there's people in the city that are praying for the city, praying for the leadership, praying for a lot of the challenges that city's face. We believe it starts there. So Trellis grew out of that prayer group. So prayer is one of the areas we're trying to bring people together. So we pray in front of City Hall on the first Wednesday of each month. We have a house of prayer that is emerging from leaders from various churches that have a heart for prayer. They're working together to help create a house of prayer in the city.
And so there's an invitation for those of you listening and maybe viewing. If you have maybe you're not a roll up your sleeves, dig a shovel kind of person, but you find yourself wired to just, love to talk to God, maybe that might be something there where you could get involved in with, I'm assuming you would
Absolutely.
welcome people to.
Or you might be someone who is an intercessor and you're praying all the time anyway. You just want to do that with others. Or you might be brand new and have never prayed but want to learn about prayer and want to learn about how to experience more of God's presence.
Prayer would be one element of are there others?
Yeah, so the city's greatest challenge is spiritual, relational, and practical. So the relational is neighboring, and then the practical side, there's two things.
Okay.
Practically, it's our schools. Our schools represent the future of our city. So we really want to partner with our schools more effectively. So what we're trying to do is create those pathways for people in our faith communities, in our businesses, in our community to get involved with our schools around things that can really help our kids. So literacy. There's a number of our schools that are underperforming big time in literacy in the elementary level. That's a huge indicator of problems in the future if we don't deal with that.
Yeah, talk about the third grade statistic that some of our listeners may not be aware of.
They've done studies where they've said that if you're not reading at grade level by third grade, your percent chance for truancy and delinquency and even jail as an adult is indicated by that. So there's a lot of implications based on different studies that they've done. But if you just think about it, like if you're in up to third grade, you learn to read. After third grade, you read to learn.
Yeah.
So if by third grade you're not really up to speed, then everything becomes harder from there forward. So you can't keep up. So yeah, you're not going to come to school. You're going to drop out. You're going to look into other things. And the statistics show that. And when we look at the statistics of some of our elementary schools where those third grade levels in third grade and below are subpar, way subpar, those are things we can make a difference in. But most of our people aren't aware of how or that it even is an issue. So we're trying to increase the awareness and increase opportunities for people to get involved. They can just be a reader for a half an hour once a week in a classroom. Would make a huge difference, or one of our after-school programs, or there's many ways that our community can engage and really help the future. So that's schools, and then the other practical way is we talk to City Hall, and we ask them what is the biggest challenge in our city, and without a blink, they tell us very clearly it's the issue of homelessness. We have a lot of people on our streets that are experiencing homelessness, and we don't know how best to deal with them. So we've been leaning into that big time over the past several years, and we're working closely with the city and with agencies and with other nonprofits trying to create programs that work together collectively to know who our homeless folks are, and to help link them to the resources and the services they need to help get them off the street. Costa Mesa is very fortunate to have what they call the Network for Homeless Solutions. So we've been very privileged to be part of that, and the results have just been incredible with our city outreach workers and our volunteer outreach workers and all the volunteers at the check-in center and lots on Saturday. I mean, we've seen over 400 people in the past 3 years end their homelessness, which is pretty amazing. But the challenge is there isn't any shelter or housing options really in Costa Mesa. So that's really the next big hurdle, is if we really want to see folks on our streets get off the streets and have a place where they can take their next steps developmentally, dealing with mental illness issues or dealing with their addiction challenges or dealing with health issues that they're struggling with out there, or just overcoming some financial challenges. They need a place. They need a place to be able to get the support and the services they need in order to take those steps.
Yeah, one of the, I don't know if it's a leadership principle that I often correlate to solving problems is, it's a story of the, spider webs in a spider. And if you're always cleaning up spider webs and you never kill the spider, then you'll never get it. And it sounds to me like having a facility, a shelter, a place where our people who need a hand up, not necessarily a handout, but a hand up, that's a big part of killing the spiders so that they can move forward. Was that accurate?
Yeah, the discussion around people who are experiencing homelessness is obviously a very complicated and long conversation.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, you don't solve homelessness without homes. And regionally, we have a massive housing problem. There's not enough variance in the types of housing options that we have in order to deal with the variance in the type of population that we have living in our county. And so if we don't rectify some of these housing challenges, then we will never be able to really resolve some of the housing issues that we're seeing.
Yeah. Here in Southern California, we have people listening, tuning in from Canada and maybe some of our cold weather, Midwest and, East Coast regions. But here in Southern California, it's 65 degrees out right now. And it's just a couple of days ago, it was in the 90s. And this is a destination place anyways. And then with the recent laws of AB 109 and, prison getting people out, it's really created this, in some ways, an epidemic. Maybe that's too strong of a word, but of a bit of a crisis. You're talking about solving cities' crisis.
It's a housing crisis.
Here's what I want our listeners to know, that if you're in a community where you're beginning to kind of ask the questions like, what can we do, and what are some practices, some starting points, I'm just going to suggest reach out to Ian. He's been in the conversation for a long time. Certainly you haven't, I don't know if you would consider yourself an expert. There's plenty of experts in this region, but I think one of the resources that Trellis will increasingly become, and I'm sure you're experiencing this already, is you are becoming a kind of a regional resource for helping troubleshoot this and maybe even other civic issues.
I think some of what we're experiencing is because homelessness is a big time California issue. I mean, California has 12% of the U.S. population, but it has 25% of the homeless population in the state of California. So homelessness is not just a Costa Mesa issue. All the cities surrounding us are dealing with homeless challenges as well. And that's why I say it's it's a housing challenge that's not just germane to our city. It's germane to our state. It's germane to our region where we are. And so as a result, other cities are talking to us and we're talking to them. And so we're learning a lot through all of this. But I'm experienced in it. I don't know if I'd say expert.
Yeah. So I want to play a little game. Okay. I'm gonna call it the word association game, and I'm gonna say one word, and I'd just like you to vamp on it a little bit. Whatever comes to your mind. It could be maybe one sentence, or maybe you want to talk a minute. But let's just see where this leads. You up for it?
I'm okay. Up for it. Sure.
Team.
Team. Together, everyone experiences a measurable result. To me, that's a team. I once, one of my favorite quotes from a guy named Glenn Parker on teamwork is that a group of people is not a team, but a team is a group of people that agree on an objective and agree that the only way to accomplish that objective is together. So that's what comes to my mind when I think of team.
Okay. Homeless.
Homeless. I think of complexity, and I think of people, just people. I think a lot of times the folks that are experiencing homelessness, who have different challenges in their life, are very much, we have people just like them that are housed. We have mentally ill people who are housed. We have addicts who are housed. We have people struggling with health issues and financial issues who are housed. And those who are experiencing homelessness don't have the resource of a roof over their head. And so their issue becomes much more in our face, much more disturbing at different levels. And but they're still people that need to know that they matter. And just like all people, housed or unhoused, need to know that they matter. I don't like classifying. And the other thing about that word homeless is people think it's a one word fits all. It is not. Just like you couldn't say housed. Is everyone who's housed the same? Is everyone who's housed, do they have the same issues and challenges? No, they're all different. And it's the same with people who are experiencing homelessness. They're people, and each one of them are experiencing something, but they all matter. They all matter to God, and they all should matter to us.
Good, well done. That's a good answer. I like that. I was hoping you'd go that way. The church.
The church. The word that comes to my mind immediately right now is changing. I think the church is in a place where it's going to be going through a season of change. It's trying to figure out some things that need to be different, because what has been isn't really working anymore. Like it's got to figure out how to change, how to keep up with what's happening in our culture, how to communicate in a way that really connects more effectively with our society. And the other thing with the church is I really do feel in the deepest part of my heart that it is God's tool for bringing hope and healing to a world that is hurting, and a big key in the church being effective is learning how to work better together. For too long, it's been isolated, and every church siloed, doing its own thing. And I think that's one of the changes that's imminent, is that we have to learn how to function better as a body, not as silos. I think that's God's heart. I think that's the heart of Jesus that we hear in John 17 in his prayer before he goes to the cross. I think we see it all throughout Scripture that the church needs to be more like a body than a silo. And I think that's one of the changes that's in the works. And but I think there's other things too that it's still figuring out. Like, how do you keep up with just some of the societal changes? Like, what we're seeing with the difference between Amazon and a box store, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like that's a change. Like,
it's evolving.
Box stores who didn't change are dying.
Yeah.
And we're seeing churches that aren't changing that are dying. And so the church has got to figure out, okay, what do all these societal implications have to do with how we deliver what we offer, and we've got to think differently. But I don't think it's been figured out yet.
I always tell the Paul Marvis family that the church is people. Church is not a building.
I agree,
right?
totally.
And so when the church goes to Stater Brothers or Vaughn's, or someone goes shopping, there's the church. If you go to Target, there's the church. You go to the gas station, the church just went to put gas in the car. And so, as you talk about Trellis and being this framework where various groups of people meeting in different parts of our city are collaborating to tackle some of our community issues, that's the church.
That's right, exactly.
This is the last word association. Then I'm going to segue just a few more minutes in this podcast. This is your wheelhouse. This is an underhanded, slow softball pitch for you. The word unity.
Unity. The word association I'd have with that is hard. It is hard to facilitate unity, and at the end of the day, we can't create unity. We can only do things to help facilitate the opportunity for unity to be experienced. I think unity is something that goes beyond it goes beyond the surface. Like, unity is something at the deepest level that you feel a connectedness with. So if we all show up and do a service project together, is that unity? It's a level of unity. Mm-hmm. But to experience real unity, how that service project is done and what we experience in it would need to create some connections and some ties that go beyond the actual service project. So I think there's different levels of unity, but either way, it's hard. It's hard to get people together. It's hard to get people on the same page and experiencing those deeper ties that really create a tight sense of unity. And it's relational in a lot of ways at its core. And a lot of times we tend to think it's more functional than relational.
So I was having a conversation with a friend, so shout out to BH. This is comes out of our conversation, and maybe it's too soon to know this, but I'd be interested to know, when you think about Trellis, and you're really you're in coordination and cooperation with God as you're following God, but as the executive director, do you think you can identify? Would you see yourself in our city, maybe Orange County, as having more of a prophetic role or a pastoral role?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I haven't thought about that too much before, but I mean, off the top of my head, I would say, wow, that's a really hard question. I'd say that we really need to play a balance between both. Like, I think if we ever lean too hard to one side of that or the other, it's almost like that's a tension to manage, because if we became too prophetic, then people would just feel like we're trying to tell them what to do and what they need to change and all the time. And I don't think that would bode well for unity or for teamwork. And on the pastoral level, if it's all caring for people and shepherding them and making sure their needs are met and that kind of thing, we're just doing that, and we don't have that other voice, then we'll just be this like soft, warm, fuzzy thing. So
would you describe yourself as soft and warm and fuzzy?
I don't think I would not.
I wouldn't either.
Hopefully some people do.
Your grandkids.
Yeah. But I think really that is not a question that I'd answer one way or the other. I would hope that we have a balance of both of those.
Yeah, I really hope, even in this podcast, I was talking to my cousin the other day about, positivity, that this podcast could bring some positivity. And I think you can be prophetic, and rather than just always calling out what's bad let's talk about what's good and
Yeah.
calling people, we're better than that, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's that prophetic voice where you're speaking into truth, but you can do it with kindness.
Absolutely.
Right? So let's transition to the kind of the last question. And this is really I want to give you an opportunity to do some kind of recruitment, talk about, I want you to invite people to participate. And if they want to, where should they go? How can they find more information? Maybe you have a couple of needs right now that are just, it's on your wish list of, God, if you could do anything, this would be a miracle. I don't know if anything comes to your mind, but this is your time. This is your opportunity to kind of invite people to get involved, because we need shareholders, right, to get involved.
Yeah, and recognizing that everyone who listens to this probably isn't in Costa Mesa, I think the way I would start that invitation is just challenging people to pray for your city. Wherever your city is, find ways to pray, and find ways to pray collectively. It's one thing to pray on your own. It's another thing to pray together. I think Barna did a bunch of statistics on prayer, and the number of people who actually pray collectively with other people is so small. It's just crazy. We need to change that. So wherever you are, start praying for your city. Find out who to pray for in your city leadership, what to pray for. Pray regularly, pray consistently, pray with a group of people. And if you want to do that here in Costa Mesa, you can go to our website. It's www.wearetrellis.com, and you can see the various ways that you can engage with prayer. When it comes to neighboring, none of this is rocket science, right? Like, we all know God's word tells us to pray. We know it tells us to love our neighbor, but we don't necessarily do it. So just start by being an intentional neighbor. Be intentional. Get out there and try to meet your neighbors. Know them more than their names. Know their family members. Know what's going on in their lives. Try to encourage them and just be there for them. Create some community around you. If we all did that where we lived, it would change the ethos in our communities in a big way. With the education piece, find out how to engage with your schools. For so long, we have stepped back and not paid attention to our schools. It's like we do our job, or we do church, or we do this over here, and they do school. And that's their job, and that's what they do. But this is our future. These are our kids, and we all can make a difference. Very little investment. We can make a big difference in a kid's life. Showing up to read for half an hour, or encouraging them at a sporting event, or do something to help impact the educational component in your area, if that's something that struck your heart today. And then whatever the biggest challenge is in your community, be aware of it. Get educated in it. Don't just listen to it from your vantage point and what you're like. Learn about it. So in Costa Mesa, it's homelessness. So, learn about homelessness. Like, understand it. Get to know some people who are experiencing homelessness. Get to know them. Listen to their story. And if there's ways you want to serve and be involved in that arena, we have numerous ways you can do that here in Costa Mesa. But, do it with the heart of wanting to understand the whole picture. And I think if we all approach the challenges in our community with more intention like that, and we're willing to get involved together, it would make such a difference. I know it's making a difference here in our city. And I hope that will continue, and it'll grow, and it'll help encourage other cities to do the same.
How can people pray for you?
Pray for wisdom in what to say yes to and what to say no to. And just, I think, pray for our lead team, that God would give me wisdom in timing on development of that, and not adding things before it's time. Just really how to create the infrastructure that will allow this thing to work well.
So, Ian, I would be remiss if I didn't do two things. First, let me just say thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I want to thank you, bro, because you have been such a key part of encouraging me and walking in this from the beginning. You've been one of the constants, one of the steady factors, and I've so appreciated you and your support through this whole thing. So thank you.
So you're welcome.
Don't let them edit that part out.
But thank you for living out your faith. And, life is messy. Transitions are messy. And just because you're a follower of Jesus doesn't mean things are always easy or clear, but you've been sensing God's leadership, and as you've been living out your faith and whatever that looks like, God is using you. And we need, this podcast is to really just tell people stories and showcase the shareholders in our city. And thank you for being one of those shareholders and loving our city. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you if you had a challenge for the pastors in our city. I'm a pastor. You're a pastor in a different realm now, but you're still a pastor. But what would your challenge be? Not just pastors maybe here in Costa Mesa and Orange County, but just globally. You have a word for prophetic or pastoral? What would it be?
Well, I think, first of all, I know how hard it is to be a pastor. And so I would want to encourage you, first of all, stay the course, go deeper in your relationship with God and in your connection with Him before you try to go deeper in anything else, leadership or an initiative or anything and you guys all know that, but don't get those mixed up. And then, I read a book recently by Dave Gibbons from New Song, which is here in Santa Ana. And he talks about his story as a pastor and getting caught up in building a Babel as opposed to a small cloud rising. The story of Babel is one thing, but then he talks about when there was a drought in the land and they were praying for rain, that Elijah had his servant go and look, and he saw this small cloud rising, and that small cloud rising eventually came and just blessed the earth. And really, as pastors, we need to keep our focus on the small cloud rising, the people that we're building into that will ultimately rise up and bless the earth, not get caught up in our Babel. So just as pastors, please always know who are those people that you're discipling, that you're building into, that you're empowering, that you're helping know their gifts and abilities and passions and temperaments so they can be that small cloud rising that just really makes a difference. Don't get caught up in Babel.
Right on. Well, thank you, Ian, for joining us on this Palm Harvest podcast. I love, this is relatively new, and so we're learning as we go. So just continue to send me your text messages and your emails. I've been hearing from lots of people from different arenas, positive and negative, and that's all part of the learning experience. That's how you grow and develop and stuff. But we really want to add value. And so thanks for tuning in. I encourage you to share this if it's helpful with you. And if you have any suggestions for maybe other people to interview, drop us a line as well. I'm Mike Decker with my friend Ian Stevenson, signing off from Palm Harvest City Leaders Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Palm Harvest Podcast. Make sure you check us out at palmharvest.com.